Hello and welcome to this episode of the Sticky Note Marketing Show. I am your host, Mary Zarnecki, and today I am thrilled to introduce you to my guest expert, Chad Sollis. So, Chad is the Chief Marketing Officer at Audio Eye. He is a seasoned marketing and product leader with over 2 decades of experience in driving business growth and innovation across various industries. And today we are going to be digging into a variety of topics where Chad is going to be sharing his expertise with us, but especially around initiatives around digital accessibility and how that can actually create a competitive advantage in your organization. So welcome, Chad. So excited to have you here on the Sticky Note Marketing Show.
Hi, Mary. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation.
Awesome. So happy you're here. And I know there are some people who are going to be watching or listening to this episode who know Audio Eye, who know you. But for those of our listeners that might be meeting you for the first time, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and how you help people?
Yeah, you bet. So Audio Eye is a digital accessibility company. We focus on solving problems for any digital assets. So websites, mobile apps, documents, PDFs, to make them more accessible, more readable, more functional for all users, but specifically for people that have visual, auditory, or neurodivergent disabilities.
Amazing. Did you have a specific inspiration behind the creation of Audio Eye? Where did it come from?
Yeah, Audio Eye, our two founders, we've been around for a long time, over 15 years. It was founded by two brothers, one of which had developed a degenerative eye disease. And they were immediately faced with this reality that the web is becoming more and more an integral part of our daily lives. And with disabilities, that becomes extremely difficult. These two brothers started Audio Eye, one of the originals in the space, to really solve this piece that is such an integral part of our lives. Our shopping is online. We manage government documents online. We do our banking online. All of those things are online and digital. And when you have disabilities and you're not properly equipped with the right technology and services, those things can be literally impossible.
I love that. It's interesting too that it was a personal story that created this, right? Understanding something firsthand makes you really aware of the challenges that not just you, but others are facing. Now, I know there
Yeah.
are folks that are maybe not thinking about that because maybe they don't have the proximity or the firsthand experience to that. But one of the things that you've been able to do is help organizations and business leaders see how this is key to their growth. So tell us a little bit about, I know you've played a big role in scaling different organizations, different companies. How has not overlooking this, right? Not skipping over this as, oh, that's not really relevant to us or that's not a priority. When it becomes a priority or an area, how does that factor into some of the growth you've been able to achieve for these companies?
Yeah, the growth I've experienced with these companies, and many of the cases, we're talking over 100% CAGRs, like really rapid, fast growth. And the way that we've been able to do that is I would chalk it up to empathy. Empathy ends up being a driver of a lot of great practices with how you go to market, how you build products, how you sell products. And empathy really is putting yourself in the place of your prospect or your buyer and how they're experiencing your brand. I'll be totally honest, early in my career, I've been doing, like you mentioned, I've been doing this for 20 plus years. Digital accessibility was not on my radar. And it, again, unfortunately, came to my radar because our company that I was with at the time happened to be going through a lawsuit related to digital accessibility. And we had to scramble and go through all the process to make that happen. And since then, digital accessibility has just been a key part of my marketing and product tech stack and philosophy. And again, it comes down to empathy. 1 in 4 Americans experience some form of disability, whether it's again visual, auditory or neurodivergent. And all those things, whether it's something like dyslexia, or you can't hear, or you have color blindness, All of those things impact your experience, but they can be solved for with the right technology. That 1 in 4 Americans, they represent, you know, sure, it's good to avoid a lawsuit. Um, that is good. That's a good thing for a business. It's an opportunity cost we sometimes overlook. Having compliance and protection is a good thing. But that audience, that 1 in 4 Americans, they represent $20 billion of buying power. Uh, on top of that, they're extremely loyal. So if you're looking at lifetime value, repeat purchase, if you're a consumer business, you're looking at those things. That 20 billion actually goes a really long way for you because they're loyal. They will come back to you over and over again. On top of that, their families are sensitive to their loved ones with disabilities. And so that buying power extends to their families. So when you look at a global impact of that 25% of Americans, you're actually looking at a $13 trillion opportunity. Now, at the end of the day, and sorry, I'm going on and on. You probably want to get a question in here. The last bit is I look at digital accessibility as an opportunity as a marketer who grew up in digital marketing.
Mhm.
It's an opportunity for personalization. Think how often we do A/B testing and we have tools like Mutiny and Adobe Target and others that are designed to personalize an experience, put the right products in front of you, put the right title, but call to action and things like that in front of you. You do that based on people, right? And this is an opportunity to personalize a digital experience, whether it's in a product or a website, to 25% of your audience. Show me a marketer that would not love to know I could target 25% and actually have a good outcome from it.
First of all, let's just stop at the 25% for just a second. Hopefully, by the way, if you're watching or listening to this, get your sticky notes out because Chad's sharing some very valuable information with you here. But just that alone, right? Asking if you haven't thought about this, do you realize that 25% of your potential total addressable market is not able to get the message that you've worked so hard to put out there, right? For one reason or another, maybe it's just not coming through effectively, or they're not able to hear, see, engage, or understand it fully. And we do so much work. You're a CMO, you've been in this, you for a long time. We do so much work as marketers to do the strategy and the competitive analysis and the market message development. And then we go through the briefing process and we bring it to life with our creative partners and all of that. We're saying, oh, yeah, and by the way, 25% of it, if we're not thinking about this, is wasted.
Yeah, may literally not be able to consume what you just spend all the time on.
That's incredible. So, and you see this, right? This is something that I know we talked a little bit before the episode started, but this is something that, for better or for worse, people aren't necessarily walking around thinking to themselves. We're thinking about, okay, when do I need to get my things into my creative partners, or when does this need to get flighted, or all the other things that we're thinking about. This digital accessibility is not always top of mind for a lot of marketers, a lot of business leaders, until, like you had explained, something goes wrong, like your experience. So when you're working with people, what are some things that people might be seeing now that's not necessarily something as, drastic as a lawsuit, but where might someone take a pause for a second, listening to us here and say, okay, if I'm seeing some of these things, I know it's now important for me to start thinking about this. So what might be some signals that they might be looking for in their business to know, okay, this is something I need to start looking into?
Yeah, sure. If you're a marketer or a product person, if say you have high abandon rate on your homepage or on key product pages, say you're an e-commerce site and certain affordances within your e-commerce experience, switching colors of an item or changing sizes, and you notice through the analytics that people aren't engaging with those affordances. It could represent in simple things like, hey, I'm not experiencing the conversion I would expect here. All of those things could be like high level early indicators. The other side of it is you could come to a provider like AudioEye and just run your website through a free scanner. And that would give you an idea immediately of what kind of high level problems exist on your website. It doesn't detect all problems, and I'll just put a little plug in because I care about the disabled community. Technology doesn't solve the problem. It can only actually detect about 40% of the issues. The best technology, which we believe AudioEye has, can still only detect about 40, some 50% in some cases of your problems with accessibility. That gets you part of the way, and that's a great step. That will be an early indicator. Really doesn't cost you much to do that. But to solve the real problem, you actually need what we call human assisted technology, which is where we have a community of people that work for audio, are disabled in various ways, that actually do audits for us and do testing for us to ensure that experience is bulletproof for your end users. So again, but on the spectrum of how do you know, to answer your question, it's going to represent in really core things: abandon rate, conversion rate,
Mhm.
engagement with affordances, things like that.
Interesting. So good signals to be looking out for, right? If you're listening, writing those down, making sure that it's not just, oh, our designer said we used a junior designer, right? It's maybe not the design. It might be something else going on there. Now, you mentioned e-commerce. Obviously, I could see that being incredibly important, right? The way you, like you said, the way the colors pop up or the way the page is structured, that kind of thing. Is there a difference, or are there different things to keep in mind if someone is in a more B2B scenario or B2C scenario? How does this play out differently for those different types of businesses?
Yeah, it's a great question. Consumer-oriented businesses from a compliance and risk perspective are going to be a little bit more, for lack of a better word, targeted, because you're dealing with end users very specifically. So your odds of having people with disabilities trying to experience your website or product are simply higher.
Mhm.
Um, with e-commerce, it's things like navigation can be really tricky, because again, e-commerce brands, they feel like they really need a branded experience, which has to have the parallax website, and it looks super cool and pretty, but those things actually become very disruptive. Actually, they become disruptive for people without disabilities as well, and they just impact the experience. But navigation, for example, assisted devices, say like a puffer for someone that has mobility issues, or a screen reader, they're going to use tab index. It's a very basic part of building a website. And if your tab index, which tells you the hierarchy of the navigation, and then if you're on an e-commerce site trying to switch to, hey, I want to change my size here or the color here, or even just add to cart, and your tab index, if I'm tabbing through it, and then all of a sudden I tab and then it jumps over here to like the different category, all of a sudden my experience is really pretty disrupted.
Yeah.
So little things like tab index, like using header tags properly, because that's how it's going to read to you. Color is a big one in e-commerce, so contrast, and so you can actually see your call to action of add to cart. So if someone's, say, colorblind, and your add to cart is a color that blends really closely with gray, it might look disabled. You might think, oh, I can't do this, it's sold out, or I might not even see it. So things like that they're actually really simple solutions, but you're focused more on the brand and the aesthetic rather than the functional outcome you're trying to drive to.
Interesting. But it's so funny too, because that brings us back to a whole nother thread we could go down, which is, what is your brand really about? Is it about just aesthetics, or is it about what you stand for and the values that you have and how you serve your people? Right? So we could go
Yeah.
down. That's like a whole nother episode. I'll have you back to talk
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. See, and for me, brand is, what are the emotional components you leave someone with after the engagement?
Yeah,
That to me is your brand.
yeah.
And so, yeah, you want that to be as positive as possible.
Amazing. Speaking of brands, do you have any stories, any great clients that you've worked with, experiences that you've had where people have gone through this transformation with you that you want to brag on a little bit?
Sure. One of our customers, we're technically based in Arizona, but we have our marketing and sales offices here in Utah. And one of our customers is one of the major tourism components for Utah. And they came to us where they were having some of the things I mentioned. They were receiving complaints. They weren't, not lawsuits, but complaints like, hey, we can't experience your website. which led to tourism being down in that particular area. And so they're like, can you help us with that? It's obviously very image driven. Utah's a very beautiful state. We have 5 national parks. We're very image driven.
Mhm.
Big component of accessibility is good alt text on images and good ways, again, like I mentioned earlier, navigation and ensuring those components are right. So one of the big benefits of good digital accessibility, it's just a natural byproduct of good digital accessibility, is SEO will typically start to increase because the natural components that make up digital accessibility also lend to good SEO. So after our engagement with them, they saw like really positive feedback from the people visiting their website. They did see tourism increase. Their SEO started to catapult, really started to escalate really rapidly, and traffic to the website really started flourishing. And but more importantly, they had these happy customers that now want to come visit our beautiful state and just a really positive outcome. And honestly, I look at it, it's a very simple engagement. Again, I'm speaking broadly. Solving for digital accessibility is a simple engagement, however you do it. If you do it with AudioEye, we do have a practice where if you don't want to do anything, you want us to do it for you, we can do that. If you're like, hey, I got a web team, I got a design team, I got the pieces I need, we just need help, we have those offerings too. But really, we're about bringing digital equality to the web. And we just want to help you as a business grow, find those opportunities, but also help this massive community within that are our neighbors that need to experience these things.
That's amazing. Well, I love that story, Chad. I actually, out here in Oregon wine country, I'm part of several of the tourism boards here. So I know that pull that the team in Utah must have had of, oh, we want to represent the look and the feel. Will that in some way limit that or challenge that? And I like your point that no, actually, it makes it available to a much broader group of people, right? It makes it actually something that people who may have not had that exposure, had that ability to enjoy it, actually invite them into that experience. So
Yeah,
fantastic.
absolutely.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much for telling us that, sharing that story, that experience, and sharing some wisdom from your perspective with us. Any last minute thoughts in terms of folks that are listening who are now thinking, okay, 25% of my market may not be able to enjoy or understand or connect with what I have out there. That's a problem. What might you give them as their next step? So if someone is interested now, their eyes have been open to this, what is the next thing they need to do?
Yeah, I would say the next thing to do would educate yourself a little bit on digital accessibility. Just become familiar with it and what's impacted. You'll be surprised that it's very much in your control, even as a small business with not a lot of resources and dollars that you can solve either on your own or with a partner like AudioEye. I'd encourage you to come to our website, do a free scan. That'll at least give you an indicator of some areas where you can do some quick wins. We can tell you title tags, color, contrast, tab index, things like that will at least help you get started. There's no cost for that. In most cases, we won't even call you and follow up with you on that. So it's very low. I don't want to scare people off, but it's a very low friction experience. And should you want to talk to us, we're happy to do that as well. But just start with educating yourself on it. It's as with anything, it becomes really easy if it becomes part of your DNA and early on. If you're a small business with big dreams to become a big business, build it into your DNA. You're probably still doing Figma designs or Canva designs for your website or for your material. Start there. Start with building in accessibility at that level. You're probably working in WordPress, or if you're a larger or mid-market business, you're using a content management platform, you have an engineer, build it into those practices. Start early. It's way easier to start with at the beginning than to retrofit everything. But if you're also down the road, don't let that discourage you because you can right size really quickly.
Amazing. And I'd imagine if you're in a larger organization, maybe just like you said, educating yourself and asking questions, right? Getting curious. What are we doing in this space? Good questions to ask.
Yeah. Yeah. And some quick wins, honestly, make sure you have really good alt text. Alt text is not for keyword stuffing for SEO. It's actually to describe the image that someone is looking at. Use good practices with header tags like H1, H2, use them in the proper order. Those kinds of things, little changes like that cost you nothing, make a big difference.
So much, Chad. And I am definitely going to make sure that we're including all of your links and, like you said, the scanner, the free tester on your website. So wherever you are watching or listening to this, if you would like to take Chad and the Audio I team up on that, we'll make sure that those links are included here. Any parting thoughts, Chad, for our audience as we wrap up our discussion today?
No, I would just say go back to my original thoughts on empathy is good marketing, good go to market begins and ends with empathy. Put yourself in the shoes of your buyer, your prospect, and just create an amazing experience. And you and your business will
Thank
win.
you so much for being here on the Sticky Note Marketing Show. Thrilled to have you as one of our guest experts here. And for those of you guys listening or watching, definitely follow up with Chad. Take them up on their offer to take their free scan. And like Chad shared, it doesn't take huge efforts, right? It could be one small change that could lead to massive growth for your organization. So thank you for joining us here on the Sticky Note Marketing Show, and I will see you on the next episode. If there is a topic or specialist or something that you want to dig into on a future episode, you can reach out to me and my team at support@marysarnecki. And who knows, maybe your topic will be the next episode that we air. So thank you again, Chad, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll see you all on the next episode.